How's it going, everyone? It's Sam. Some people say you should never sell your Bitcoin. I want to talk about that because I got kind of called out, right? And there's some good points being made. Maybe you don't ever want to sell your Bitcoin because it's a great asset, right? It's always going to appreciate, kind of. It's going to appreciate significantly. Maybe you don't want to miss out on some of that upside. Mark Moss just made a video talking about the only Bitcoin retirement strategy you need. Basically saying you should continuously take loans against your Bitcoin and use future loans to pay back your previous loans. He calls out some of my videos on it, saying that maybe people that say this don't really know what they're talking about. So I want to hit on this, right? I also just filmed this and my microphone did not pick anything up, and I'm already having a problem talking today because I talked too much over the last day, so I'm like coughing. I'm going to try to get through this, right? If you don't mind, hit subscribe, turn on the bell notification underneath the video so you can see future videos just like this as soon as I make them. There are also going to be some links underneath the video. You can check out Margex, where you can trade cryptocurrencies using leverage. There's no KYC, which means they don't know how much Bitcoin you have and your personal information, right? That's kind of important. There's also a link down there to CoinW as well in case you want to trade cryptocurrencies, just spot, or you want to trade futures, you can check out CoinW. Now, Mark Moss made a video just yesterday, 66,000 views. He calls out some of my videos specifically. Let me play this for you.
On demand for loans. Remember that. Back to the question, which is why doesn't anybody know that we're in a debt-based monetary system? As Henry Ford told us 100 years ago, that if the people of the nation understood the banking and monetary system, there would be a revolution before the morning. Not tomorrow, not next week, before the morning. And so that's where we're at. So we are in a debt-based monetary system. Okay, now back to everybody's wrong. Not just traditional finance is wrong. I did a whole video about why boomers in retirement, why they're having a problem. We'll go ahead and link that to here, and we'll link it in the show notes if you want to watch that video, if you want to understand why the financial system is fundamentally wrong. But back to Bitcoin, all these people posting videos just like this, you'll see them all across YouTube right here. How much Bitcoin do you need to retire? How much Bitcoin do you need to retire? How much Bitcoin do you need to retire? They all just make the same videos. And they're all based off the exact same fundamental problem. The exact same fundamental problem, which is our financial system that's broken. Okay, and so you'll see like this. This is a YouTube.
Okay, so he goes through this a little bit more, basically saying that you don't want to sell off prized assets. Assets are going to become more and more scarce if you don't need to. Right? This is an old way of thinking that you should sell off assets. What you really should do, in his opinion, is take loans against your Bitcoin. Right? Continuously take loans and then use future loans to pay off your existing loans. Now, I'll be honest, there are some good points that are made here, right? There are some good points that are made. Maybe you don't want to sell off an asset like Bitcoin that has so much volatility. Maybe. Now he goes through how you can make a lot more money, hold on to your assets, pass them down to your children without having to sell them off, right? And he goes through all the math. I'll be honest. There are some situations where you don't want to sell your assets. Think about it, right? If you have some piece of real estate that continues to cash flow, and then you have some problem with your house, right? The roof caves in. Do you go sell off your rental property to go repair your house? No, you would get a loan, right? You would get a loan, maybe a home equity line of credit, something to fix your house, and you pay off the loan. That makes sense, right? Maybe there are some assets that have high transaction fees, like real estate as well. You don't want to go pay 6% transaction fee when you could just take a loan. Maybe you don't want to pay taxes, right? If you buy Bitcoin and then it shoots up and you make a ton of money in the short term, you don't want to pay taxes. You'd rather with this, you wouldn't even have to pay taxes, right? You can just take loans without having to pay tax on the amount that you've gained, right? There are situations where this makes sense, I think. However, you have to realize Mark and I talk to large groups of people. He's talking to 66,000. I have videos here where I made a how to retire on Bitcoin video, 69,000 views. I don't think a strategy where you take 10% loan to value and then some years take 20% is good for most people. Keep in mind, that's a dangerous game. And A lot of it comes down to your assumptions, right? He's showing Bitcoin here a 200% gain, 150% gain, 50% decrease. I mean, he's talking about 2026 at $750,000 Bitcoin. By 2040, he's talking about a $25 million Bitcoin, $30 million Bitcoin, which I think is possible, but it makes it a lot easier to take loans when you're assuming that, 15 years from now, Bitcoin's still going to appreciate 50% a year, 50% a year, 25%, and then only have drawdowns at 15%. Like, those are very very favorable conditions. Eventually, I think Bitcoin will be big enough that it's going to move a lot more like the general market. Maybe not in terms of gains, but like when it moves up and down, and there will be bear markets that last more than a year, in my opinion, in the future. It's not always going to work out in the same 4-year cycles, because as time goes on, the importance of the Bitcoin halving becomes less and less. Because when you go from 0.2 Bitcoin or 0.2% Bitcoin issuance to 0.1, right, or something similar, it's not going to make that much of an overall difference on the price of Bitcoin compared to when you go from like 2% inflation down to 1%. So a lot of it comes down to your assumptions. A lot of it comes down to, like, are you talking to very, very sophisticated people that are going to be able to handle taking loans against an asset like this that's so volatile? Keep in mind, if you take a loan at the wrong time on Bitcoin and then we see a 75% drawdown, there's a ton of risk in there. There's a ton of risk that you just lose all your Bitcoin instead of just selling a few percent of it when we're looking toppy. So yes, there are some times when you never want to sell a prized possession, a prized asset. But for the general public, I think it makes sense to take profits. It's much simpler to take profits than to take a loan, take some of the profits from what you've gained the next year, and then pay back that prior loan and keep on flipping year after year, right? Sorry, throat's going. We had the lozenge here, but I think it does make sense to more likely sell some Bitcoin over time. Like, if you are retiring and you have, let's say you have $5 million worth of Bitcoin and you need $100,000 to retire or to spend in a year, I think it makes sense just from a mental perspective to go sell 2% of your Bitcoin rather than trying to take a loan and then pay off your loan and then like back and forth, right? The amount that appreciates will more than make up for what you sold. So for the general public, I think it makes more sense just to take a little bit of profits. There are times we know when Bitcoin becomes undervalued. I mean, take a look at this, right? Bitcoin was at 16,000. No one wanted to buy it. No one wanted to talk about it. If there are times when it's undervalued, criminally undervalued, there are probably times when it's overvalued, right? Unless you want to hold on to Bitcoin forever, right? And you just want to hold on to it, right? I understand some people want to do that, but if you think it's undervalued at certain times, there are probably times when it becomes too toppy, where you want to take a little bit of profit. Also, personally, I know that I have a large amount of Bitcoin. Like in my portfolio, no financial advisor would suggest what I am doing. I have too much Bitcoin for my portfolio in most people's eyes. So if Bitcoin continues to appreciate, it's going to become a massive portion of my portfolio, even more than it is right now. It's going to be most of my net worth. In that scenario, let's say Bitcoin's at 200,000, 150. I don't think of it as selling Bitcoin. I think of it as basically transferring it or trading it for a different asset, like transferring it for a cash flowing rental property that can help me go buy more Bitcoin if we have a bear market, or just gives me some peace of mind. It will take care of my family, right? No matter what the volatility of Bitcoin is, we're going to have a rental property that pays hundreds or thousands of dollars a month that we can use for our daily life. Now, if I have to pay a Bitcoin for it, okay, yes, that sucks because I probably would make more money just holding onto the Bitcoin for the next 5 years or 10 years, but diversifying a bit, I think makes sense, right? A lot of it comes down to just your own sanity. So if you're taking loans against Bitcoin, assuming that's going to appreciate 50% in a year, then 50% the next year, then 25%, you're banking on a $26 million Bitcoin just to pay back your old loan and stuff, and hoping that it doesn't draw down too much. I think that can make you go a little bit crazy. Especially when you're in this game. Let's say you have a Bitcoin or a couple Bitcoin and they're worth $10 million. Like at that point, it's about wealth preservation. Like, how do I just not lose this massive sum of fiat potential, right? Or this massive worth of Bitcoin? How do I not lose it? you don't take loans against it, or you can lose all of it because you try to take a 10th of its value or a 20th of its value. Like, just go sell a little bit of it so you don't lose all of it, in my opinion, right? At this point, it's just about not screwing up. Don't screw up at that point. If you've made it in Bitcoin, if you have multiple Bitcoin and it's worth millions and millions of dollars, like just sell a tiny bit instead of trying to leverage it, trying to take loans against it, trying to time the market in and out, right? It's much better, I think, to time the market in and out if you're talking about a few percent of your portfolio, maybe taking some profits, versus trying to leverage it or take loans against it and pay back old loans and get interest in the meantime. Like, that gets a little bit riskier. So let me know your thoughts on this underneath the video. Sorry, I would have gone a little bit more in depth on some of this stuff, but my voice is absolutely gone, right? So let me know your thoughts. Let me know if you will ever sell your Bitcoin, right? If you're in retirement or you're trying to take some money out, right? You have expenses. What are you going to do? Are you going to sell, or are you going to take loans against it and try to continue that snowball? Because from a purely mathematical standpoint, the loans probably make sense if Bitcoin continues to do the same thing it's done in the past, continues to appreciate aggressively. But there's always going to be that nagging in the back of your brain thinking, if we go through a big drawdown for multiple years too, maybe it goes multiple years like real bear markets do, like a 2008, 2009, 2010 bear market, right? Maybe you lose your Bitcoin then. Let me know your thoughts underneath the video. If you want to trade cryptocurrency, you can check out Margex and CoinW. Thank you so much. I will see you in the next one.